Okay, so this is Pascal on your speakers, and I'm going to present you Federal City 2.0. So, the producers of this TV show called If You Build It Today contacted us to create a new US capital. And they said, yeah, we want to have it in the middle of the country on the Mississippi. So that means near St. Louis, which you can see here. And the idea was to find a location somewhere here. So our first idea was to put the city somewhere here. However, pretty quickly we realized this is not going to happen because this is a flooding zone, and we can turn on here the flooding layer. So now the flooding layer, this is some GIS data where you see the different, you can see here, this is the bed, the riverbed of the Mississippi, and this is in a flooding zone. And obviously you don't want to build a mega city downtown in one of the flooding zones in one of the biggest rivers of the world. So means we were searching on the sides of the riverbed for a location. However, let's go back here. So, however, when we exaggerate this terrain 3 times, then we see that this terrain here is actually pretty hilly. So you can see here, I mean, this is exaggerated, but many hills here. So we were searching and searching, and finally we found the location, and exactly here. Took us quite a while to find this location. It was also important to have actually here. It was also important to have a location where there is no settlement yet, so that we don't need to relocate people. But you can see here between these two hills, there is a nice area to put a downtown, and you can see the producer said the city should be about 10 miles, which is about 16 kilometers. So this is going to be a pretty big city. And here, 16. Good thing is the city can grow down here as much as it wants. So we found our location. As a next step, we were, let's go here to the city and to our terrain here. So the next step was to figure out, so what is the actual situation here. So first we look again at the flooding here in this zone in more detail, and what you see is basically here is the red zone, which you don't want, where you don't want to be, and this orange area, this can be controlled with levees, and this here from the creeks coming from here, which could be easily controlled. So now that we found the location, the next step was to make an urban plan. And the first most important part, of course, when you build a US capital, is to have kind of an idea about the monuments. So, and where is basically questions like where is the Capitol building, where is the White House? The producers told us, yeah, let's move the White House to this new US Capitol for now. This is what we did. And maybe you know the urban plan of Washington, D.C. is actually, it is a planned city, purpose-built city. So means it has different planners. One of them is Macmillan, who did kind of the plan with the monuments and the memorials, and it's a very geometric plan. And what we decided to put is this to put the three main things, the Washington Monument, the Capitol building, and the White House in one line here. This axis is basically given by the topography here. And then we decided in front here we make a huge park, kind of a bit bigger than the Central Park of New York City. And in the middle is the Washington Monument. We made it double the size because, yeah, nowadays you can build a 340-meter obelisk. So basically the idea was to create this park, and here another smaller park for the White House. And then the idea was also that here are museums and the Smithsonian's around the park here. And here we call this kind of state pavilions. So means the idea is that we have 50 pavilions here, where each state can have exhibitions, art exhibition, architecture exhibition, a bit like the Biennale. So it should be kind of changing exhibition. So this should become a really nice area for the citizens. Then, of course, the main thing is the city, which will be around this. So here, this is a circle of about 7-mile diameter. And here we want to build some downtown area. And what we from the beginning wanted to do was to kind of keep the spirit of current DC and have here all buildings that are not too high. So means, maybe you heard about that, all the buildings in DC are lower than the capital. So it means about 10 to 12 stories in downtown area. And this makes it a very charming, beautiful downtown area. So means this was our basic idea which we had. Now, as the next step, we had to start to actually really figure out, yeah, what kind of urban plan do we want to put here. One thing you see here is the airport. So we decided to place the airport here because here it's very, very flat. And so to make the urban plan, what we kind of decided was let's use the same principles as the urban planner of Washington DC, which is L'Enfant, and he's a very geometric guy. So we went in and did some kind of geometry reference here, where you see the circle and then the diagonals. And L'Enfant is very famous for his diagonals on cutting basically the city. And so means what we did was, we did diagonal here, 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 and subdivided more and more. And this was then kind of the main grid which we kind of decided to go for. As a next step, what we did was then we entered the actual these actual roads here. So means these key roads here. Let me change here. This is a bit more. Let me change the background of the city so you can see it better. So so what you see here are basically the main avenues of the city. Let's go to wireframe. Then you see you can see the main roads here. What you also see here actually a metro. Let me show that. So let's go a bit up. So here you see the main roads, and what we then did after we have these main roads is we put the centers here. So means we decided to have city centers with high-rise buildings around this circle here, and one in the middle. We call these centers like historical presidents. So here's the Roosevelt Center, the Washington Center, the Eisenhower Center, And this is the Kennedy Center here. And here we call this park here the Lincoln Park. And here is the Jefferson Center. And East Downtown and North Downtown. So means we had kind of the main idea of our city. And now, as mentioned, what is very important is how do people get around. So on the one hand, they have these main axes here. You see here, this is basically takes a tunnel here through these hills here or here and here, which connects the centers. However, what we also were thinking about was a metro, a high-speed metro, which really allows you to be basically in like 10 minutes from the airport to the furthest point here, or yeah, be in 5 minutes from one center to the next center. So let me show you the metro by moving it up. I select objects, I go to the translate tool, and I move it up a bit. And now you see the metro here on top. So we did 3 of these high-speed metro lines. The green one we called the Circle Line, which also goes to the airport. Then the orange one we call the Central Line, which goes down here, and then here in East Downtown you can get out for the park, and North Downtown and then back, plus to connect the 2 furthest city centers. And we made this blue line here, which is the Arc Line. This is only the high-speed metro, so we didn't design the secondary metro. I mean, like the normal metro, which yeah, connects areas like, for example, these 3 centers, which will be very near together, will be connected by yeah, standard metro as we have it in other cities. So let me turn off the metro. And now, as you can see, so we have now the core idea of what we want to build. And now the next step was, now the actual manual work started. So, and what we did in the first step was draw some streets. On one hand, one you can see here is this is more kind of an artistic work, very landscaping, about like, yeah, creating some streets in this park and some forms. You might also recognize this part here, which is basically a bigger version, a bit a wider version of the mall as we have it now in Washington DC. So here, yeah, if there are some big happenings, typically people come here in front of the Capitol. And then we also did some other streets here, as you can see. Let me show you these streets. So you can see here what we did was we have the streets which follow the rivers, and then also using existing streets here, and then the ones along the river. So as a next step, it's actually better visible like this. So here you can see actually all these beautiful streets. And so now as a next step, we are using one of the special features of CityEngine, which is street grow and the ability to really create streets yeah, at scale. So the first part we did was a grid which has kind of similar dimensions as the block grid in DC currently in downtown. So we added this and then we merged it with yeah, these avenues. And yeah, so means in CityEngine you can then really kind of grow different kind of street networks. And now let me do it like this. So now we only see the models. And so what we did now was using with CityEngine you can not only grow grids, but you also can grow streets that are radial or organic or that follow the topography. So it means this is what we did. So this is about 1 day's work to actually then really create a whole street network, which you see here. So the street network, here you see a radial one around these two centers here, and out there is more organic here. So it's a really a lot of different blocks and things. So now the actual real magic of CityEngine is to create architecture. So and therefore we developed a programming language, as you might know, called CGA, which allows you to generate and program architecture. And let me turn that off. And now here you see the final city. So what we see here is basically the Washington Center in the middle, and here the radial centers. This is the Eisenhower centers, and then here is the Hill, and here the Kennedy Center. So this is kind of the final, yeah, procedurally generated city. In CityEngine you can generate actually as detailed as you want. For example, in movies like Game of Thrones or TV shows like Game of Thrones, you can, yeah, they did very detailed cities. However, in urban planning, you actually do not want to have so detailed representations, because this is just this should just be an imagination. It will be the actual architects which then decide on how the buildings look like in detail. We only decide on what is allowed regarding height, size, intensity. And now what you also might have seen already is here also the final park. So you can only generate buildings, you also can yeah, generate parks procedurally, and this is what we did here, yeah, resulting in a very beautiful park here in Lincoln Park. And yeah, so this is the final city. Let me show you some views here. Let's go in here a bit and let's check this view here with from the park. It's very symmetric here. Let's go to the Capitol. What's actually also interesting in CityEngine is you can create so-called visibility analysis. So means, as you might have heard, the idea was that the Capitol is the highest point in downtown Washington DC, so means basically from all roofs you can see the Capitol. So let's check if this is also the case here. So what we do here is a so-called view shed or view dome, and this basically tells you where you can see, from where you can see the very top of the Capitol. And as you can see, yeah, on the top of the buildings, you can see it's higher, it's visible. Also, even from the other centers, they can see the Capitol here. Let me turn this analysis off again. And let's go to the White House. Here are the Smithsonians. So here's the White House, and again, some very beautiful views. The Capitol and the Washington Monument here, a little lake. Here you can see the Jefferson Center. The centers have different heights. This one is about maximum 300, 400 meter high rises. Here, this would be if you would have 500 meter high rises, which of course is a lot, but yeah, possible nowadays. And here you also see the alleys of the streets. It's also interesting as you can actually also, even when you go here into this park at the very end, you can actually see, because this alley here is this avenue is so wide, it really allows you to see the Capitol and again the Washington Monument. So another thing which is super important in urban planning is not only the buildings and the parks, it's also the open space between the buildings, mostly streets. So what you can do in CityEngine is you can model streets as detailed as you want, and so means nowadays what's very important is actually there's so much life happening on streets, and what you see here is such a detailed street profile. And let me isolate this. I select them and isolate. So what's very important when you have this in urban planning to create these street profiles, you have to imagine here is, for instance, commercial retail, so there will be a lot of life here. And what you do not want anymore these days is that you have like 8 lanes here, avenues of traffic. You really want to have, you want to be able to, cross the road and maybe have restaurants here, coffees, etc. So means what our urban planners try to do is they add lanes like bike lanes here, bus lanes, and only one normal traffic lane. What you see here, this is created with the complete streets rule set by David Wasserman, which is a very awesome example to download and play with, so you can really create every street profile. What we changed for our federal city was that we basically created this kind of double-decker avenues, we call them. So means below the avenue we create more traffic lanes. Of course, only the main avenues in order to really support this traffic, and then you can have ramps to come up. And so this is the street profile done with the complete streets rule. Let me go back. These trees are schematic trees, as you can see. We turn on the environment again. And so this is the city we generated and created and designed. It took us about a week. We were 2 people designing this from scratch, creating the whole design. Here, this part here especially has all designed by Ricardo, who's an urban planner. And so this is Federal City 2.0.